Okay, we are beginning. Thank you and welcome to our session. I'm Denise Schmitz. I'm with Neumann Monson Architects. This is Sally Obernolte, and we're here today to talk about generating content marketing, okay? It's important that I am here in a marketing role, so I'm one of those people that's creating the messaging. Sally is an architect and a seller doer, so she's using the content. That relationship is very important, and so bear that in mind as we continue.
All right, thanks, Denise. Well, we're going to start off actually by taking a little step back and first giving you a little context about who we are and what our CX journey has been thus far. So, as Denise mentioned, we're an architecture firm. We have a 45-year history, and we have 2 studios based in Iowa. And our team of 40 believes architecture has the power to drive positive change in our world. That is our mission. Of particular interest to the discussion today, we don't really have a sales team. So other than a few specialists like Denise here, we're primarily an entire group of seller and doers. And our seller doers are passionate about our design craft and what we do, and we've created 3 strategic teams around that really focus on design. But we also realize that we can't focus on only what we do. We also need to focus on our clients and on our employees. So we created strategic teams both around CX and EX that essentially are bookending our design, our focus. Now, all these strategic teams, well, they've all had some great success all on their own, but they've also been operating somewhat like silos. Those lines on the screen are intentional for this diagram. So we're currently working on a more synergistic approach, we hope, a synergy that maybe looks more like this. Again, this is all in the works. But where EX and CX are continually feeding each other, because we all know that we can't have happy clients unless we first have happy employees. And the craft is really at the heart and at the center of what it is that we do. Maybe it could be much like a self-sustaining ecosystem, continually breathing life into each other. But let's go back to CX. That's what we're here to talk more about today. So we've been fortunate to have a lot of trusted partners to really guide us along the way. In 2014, we started partnering with Client Savvy and established our client listening program. And in 2018, that is when CX became really our #1 strategic priority. And we entered into a year-long endeavor with CX pilots, and we were trying to learn absolutely anything that they were willing to teach us for an entire year. And we did learn a lot. However, there was one topic that we just never quite got the hang of. We never made it operational. And that topic was called insights. And I don't know if everyone knows what an insight is, but how we were defining it is essentially information or content that we're publishing. And the idea is you want to be much more of a resource that's educating and attracting all of your potential clients. So Denise will go into this in a lot further here. She'll go into it more. But to be honest, for whatever reason, we just didn't get it. We just didn't. And we really made zero traction on all of this until a person on our team discovered this book called They Ask You Answer. And all of a sudden, it was like a light bulb went off. And soon, several of us on our team were reading this book. And that led us into connecting with a company called Impact, whose co-founder is also the author of the book, They Ask You Answer. So we've been at this for about a year now, and we're definitely not claiming to be experts at it, but we're here to basically share our story, let you know how we got started, what some of our lessons are, and what some of the early takeaways are. So for the remaining part of our time together, this is what we're going to talk about. We'll take a deeper dive into focusing on why content marketing, what the content is, how we're creating it, and how we're using that content. And then also we want to measure it, and we'll talk about some of our early results.
Yes, excellent, thank you. So on to the why. For us, this was very much a revenue generating decision that we made. In fact, it was kind of one of the first and biggest and only revenue generating decisions that we were making to attract clients and businesses, buyers, through content generation. We also were doing this for the purpose of just gaining alignment in our industry. Our architecture is unique in that only probably less than 3% of the people of the population will ever hire or work with an architect, combined with the fact that it's a very technical and very jargon heavy. So we have a lot of ground to make up to create content and make our profession more approachable. But in doing so, we are educating, we are creating greater alignment, and ultimately what we're trying to do is find those ideal clients, work with those ideal clients, and then amplify our mission of what we want to do with the people who have similar goals. So we're creating content through the entire sales funnel, following the entire buyer's journey. And so how do we do this? The first thing we have to do, as Sally mentioned, we had a lot of baggage from our previous attempts to create insight, so we needed to get alignment. We absolutely did not get it. I'm showing you some examples of some of our early attempts, which I can guarantee no client ever asked. No client ever wanted to know where we got our inspiration for drawing, or no client wants to know when building is both a noun and a verb. These are just completely inside our head. We did not get it. Oftentimes, I've heard this described as the inability to read the label from inside the jar, and that's exactly what we were experiencing. We were so inside our heads, we couldn't step aside to kind of see what we do from an outside perspective. We thought we were, but we were not.
We were not.
We were not. So, as Sally mentioned, we discovered this book. We knew we had some baggage, so we used this book to kind of align everyone, to get us all on the same page. It was a voluntary book club. We had 100% participation from leadership, and 65% of our busy seller doers participated. It gave us great alignment. The book is really centered around 3 basic topics. This book is not going to win any literary prizes, but the concepts are very simple and really kind of just worked for us. So the basic question is really encapsulated in the title. If your buyers, your marketplace is asking questions, you need to answer them. And you need to do it in a way that is truthful and unbiased, simple and straightforward. And then lastly, the book uses or advises a way to then use this content in a way. So we're pulling people in, but there's also techniques you can use to more surgically kind of push that information out to clients based on what they are wanting to hear. So, on to a little bit more detail about the book. So their research shows that of all these questions, we're fielding questions from our clients every day, right? All these questions fall into mostly 5 categories, okay? So the first is about price and cost. Second, problems, comparisons, reviews, and then sort of best of categories, okay? And the premise is we are having dialogue with our clients about this all the time, right? We know how to talk about price. We know that in our case that our price is variable and it's not a simple answer of, you know, it costs X amount to design a school, for example. So the concept is we just have to be bold enough and brave enough to put these things in writing and put them on our website, okay? So that's what we're doing. Now, I want you to kind of keep in mind these topics as we talk about them for the next few slides, because what we will be doing is a little brainstorming session here within this group, so you can kind of start to maybe make your own mental shift on how you can start responding to some of these questions.
Think about what your clients have been asking you.
That's right. There are other categories. Again, the the 5 most questions, or I'm sorry, the most often questions are landing in those 5 categories. So you're going to, if you're answering them, you're going to get the most. You're going to get the most searches. You're going to get the most hits. You're going to get the most responses by addressing those questions. These are other categories, obviously, that questions and content can be surrounded around as well. So we have alignment. We have the book. We have people who are committed. We did a voluntary brainstorming session and just using an online platform. And this is in a 1-hour session what we came up with. So this is kind of the thing that jump starts our brainstorming. We are now in this sort of self-fulfilling, this self-fulfilling cycle now where people are used to creating that content, used to suggesting ideas, and so it becomes something that is, self-fulfilling, which is important because we are producing 3 pieces of written content. We're publishing 3 pieces of written content every week. So here's our horrible insights from 2008, or 2018 rather, and here's some better ones, some appropriate ones. So you can see on the right-hand column, we're kind of going through some of those, the big 5. I didn't mention that in the book they actually recommend that 5th category is combined, the 4th and 5th are combined, so you'll see reviews and best in class are combined here, but there's many ways to talk about price aside from what does this service cost, right? So here's one example. How do you charge for your services? We get questions like this about cost all the time. What are the problems? There's 2 ways of addressing problems. You can address it from the standpoint of what are the problems that we deal with, so what comes up in the course of a project that are problems, how do we deal with them, how do we prevent them, and what do we do if it does happen, but also their problems, your buyer's problems. What are their pain points? What are the things that they're concerned about encountering and working with you? Address them head on. And then lots of other examples too. I included a process example there. So when I am working with you, what's the kickoff meeting like? Who needs to be there? What does it entail? Et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully this is getting you to start thinking, I'm hearing these questions all the time. This is the kind of stuff I should be providing content around. And then, just because this was a reaction for us, our team was like, there's no way we're going to be able to write about cost. There's no way. We don't do it. Nobody in our industry is doing it. Like, that's top secret. It's not top secret. It's not appropriate. It's not ethical, whatever. But so I'm just providing kind of a list here so you can see that there's, as I said, many ways to talk about price.
We came up with no shortage, to talk
we still
about
haven't
price
run
and
out.
cost.
So now we are going to do our brainstorming session, and Sally's going to set that up for us.
Yeah, all right. Hopefully we gave you a few examples of what type of content, that we're really trying to talk about here. So what are your clients asking you? What have they been asking you, and what could you inform them about? And what would be really awesome if you had a document or a blog on your website that you could refer them to help address that question in a meaningful way. So much like on the couple slides before, we had a slide up that had all sorts of Post-it notes on there of an internal ideation session we had done of saying, hey, what are our clients asking us? What could we possibly write about here and create content about? We want to do a mini session of that here with you right now. It's not meant to be super formal or anything, but there's 4 tables that each have a large sheet on them, and each of those large sheets has one of those, has one of those top 5, although we combined 4 and 5, as Denise mentioned, into one. And so if you're sitting at a table that has one of those sheets, if you could focus on that topic, start brainstorming, you have blue sticky notes for pricing, for example, which is right here, try to start brainstorming on some of the questions for you that your clients might be asking that you could brainstorm and put on that sheet. And so forth with all the other ones. If you're sitting at a table that doesn't have a white sheet, you're welcome to move to one if you want, or we did put some extra Post-it notes of all 4 colors, and you can pick whatever you want to do. You can pick one. And the idea is that we'll give you a few minutes, and then we'll just report out a few of them from each table. And at the end of it, we'll let you guys photograph all of them too, so you can take home all of the ideas from all the different categories.
Okay, we're going to circle back up here. We're going to do some quick reporting and then move into some other parts of the presentation. So,
yeah, how about, can we just start, we'll just start going around the room. I think we're in different orders, but that's totally fine. We have reviews and best in class over on this side. Would anybody like to volunteer to just share 2 or 3 of the ideas that you came up with as far as what would be some content your clients would want to hear about?
First thing we thought about was DEI efforts.
All right.
It seems to be a big thing nowadays. Everybody wants to know what different firms are doing with diversity and equity and inclusion. We also talked about the importance of local participation, if you're involved in certain things in your local area and your involvement. And then we were just starting to talk about niche areas, if you want to promote those. Talk about your win.
Specialized services.
sure. Okay.
Okay,
Do you want to take
thank you. Yeah, I could, you'll get the sheet. All right, and next table here we have pricing and cost. Who could share a couple of your ideas? Thank you.
Sure. So, yes. Is there flexible pricing? What is the most this could cost us? Is there a possibility for varied payment terms? What are upfront costs and maintenance costs over time? So those are some of the
Absolutely,
examples.
yeah. And I can see that you guys weren't having too much problems finding ideas to talk about either, were you? Everyone wants to know about price and cost. Thank you. Okay, over here, what do we have? We have problems. What are the problems our clients want to hear about? Who could share 2 or 3 examples? Thanks, Joshua.
Okay, yeah. So one of them is, how can you assure me I will receive the same quality of service across your team, the different team members?
Yeah.
Over here, how will you address peak workload periods?
Definitely a problem we can run
Expecting the A team but getting the B team.
into. Yep. We hear about that one.
How soon will I receive my benefits? That's one here.
Got one more in there.
How can I reduce the likelihood of a change order? I always like that question.
Right? Everyone, change order the dirty words. All right, well, thank you. So that was problems. What do we have over here? We must have our last one, comparisons, right?
Yes.
Would someone be willing to share a couple of your ideas?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We had, is my project a candidate for lead certification versus build to standard, and what does that look like? Is design build right for me?
Yep.
What are alternative construction methods I might want to consider? And supply chain issues, in light of that, what are some alternates in the marketplace we could leverage?
All right. We have a story coming up related to your design build one that you might find interesting in on an article we wrote about that. How about over here? Do you guys have some additional items to? We did, but she just took them. She already took them. Oh.
I'll read a couple of these. So there was one over here regarding price, why you don't want to negotiate the lowest rate. Like, what are the dangers of taking the lowest rate? Big consulting versus customer-focused consulting, so a comparison. Another comparison, pros and cons of EPC project delivery versus a traditional project delivery method. Yeah, these are great.
Okay, so hopefully we just really wanted to get the juices flowing a little bit as to what we're talking about. This is kind of what it was like with our own team internally, although we did do a lot of it over more of a virtual session, so we had kind of digital whiteboard going with mural and things. But it's one way that we can generate a lot of ideas really quickly and then just get them out there and start categorizing them and seeing where are our priorities and what should we start with first. So yeah, we have a question in the back.
first and foremost, our blog. Then did you guys hear the question? Are we putting it on our website or blog? What? It's first and foremost on our website blog, and then we kind of cherry pick pieces to share on LinkedIn primarily, some on Instagram, but primarily LinkedIn.
Have you seen your SEO improve?
We'll get to that.
Appreciate the question.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I can hand that to you. Yeah, so we just wanted to get the juices flowing, and we'll dive back into more about creating content.
So as Sally mentioned, we are working with this coach from the Impact group, and so we're doing all these things. We're doing well. They said, okay, you need to hire a full-time content writer, and we said, full-time, like for how long? They're like forever. This person will be your forever employee. So we did, and it was beneficial that we do this because this person is outside the jar, right? That was part of our problem. We couldn't get out there. He is firmly outside the jar, and we really were very, very focused on what he does. So we don't pull him in to write proposal content. We don't pull him in to do that other stuff. He focuses entirely on this. He does have a journalism background. He does great work. That's probably enough said about that. So now we have a content writer. We store all these brainstorming ideas. So every time we got this big batch of ideas in the beginning. Now people are freely suggesting ideas on a regular basis. We store those in an online cloud. And then what we do is upvote, kind of on a weekly basis, we upvote what's going to be moved up and actually produced into content. We assign who our internal subject matter expert is, and then we publish our draft dates, edit dates, publish dates, and do it. As Tyler prepares for these interviews, he creates a really focused objective on each piece. Who is it trying to reach? Who's the audience? Where are they in their buyer's journey? It just helps make that content that much sharper. He sends questions out to the SMEs in advance, so everyone comes to those interviews and they're prepared to be as efficient as possible.
And maybe a quick reminder, Tyler doesn't have an architecture or design background, right? So he's bringing this through the lens of someone that knows nothing about what we do so that he can put it in plain English jargon, or eliminate the jargon, I should say.
Jargon-free,
Jargon-free.
So real quick, just an anatomy of a blog post. So the first thing, rather than just kind of vomiting our information out there, right? We want to kind of set that up. So first, identify the buyer's pain point. What is it that's behind this question that we're responding to? So what's the buyer's pain point? And then we kind of establish our own authority, if you will, just very quickly. We've helped hundreds of clients do blah, blah, blah. Just quick credibility. Summarize what they're going to learn so they know if they're in the right place. And then the content itself, which once you start to create more and more content, you'll see that you have all these inline links you can create to really accentuate that learning, and then always have a next step at the end of the article. So what else can they do on your site to kind of take their learning to the next level? And since Tyler has been with us, which is about a year, we've got probably by now 100 pieces on our site. Really great, valuable stuff. Yeah.
So how do you pull stuff down? I mean, at some point, you would assume it pages and it's no longer perfect message. Do you regularly review content for removing stuff?
We are regularly reviewing and frankly editing. So as you're making these inline, tags from piece to piece, you got to be mindful of that. We have not yet run into a place where there's anything that is aged out or is no longer relevant. But that is part of the process, is to kind of, spring clean a couple of times a year just to make sure that everything is still current.
Just a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Do you also track how much activity you get in each piece of that content?
We do. We'll talk about some of these performance here in a minute. So at any point,
question over here.
yes.
On the interview stage, is that internal interviews or external?
Entirely internal. So we establish our own, who's the best person within our offices to speak authoritatively about this subject.
How do you get your team in as part of the culture? How do you get your team to view this
I don't know, we just haven't had that issue. But that alignment and buy-in that we got early on it's part of our culture now, yeah.
Those brainstorming sessions, everyone is invited to do that. We include everybody, and I know we're a size of a firm that can do that as well. But they all are aware about it. They all know about it, and so when Tyler schedules something, he just picks a time on our calendars that's actually free, and it's only about a half hour long. That's really about the dedication that goes into it. Most likely, I already know everything that I need to share with him. It doesn't have to be anything too technical that's needs a lot of research ahead of time. So he's just a few times a week putting a half-hour calendar or a half-hour meeting on our calendars. And so the SME that Denise was referring to, that stands for subject matter expert. Those are all internal, to the point of your question. We aren't reaching out and finding others. We could maybe do that at some point, but right now, everything is just all, our experts are internal, and he's interviewing basically all the seller doers that are out there doing the job.
So you're, to piggyback on that, then that SME who was assigned or selected to be the expert on that content is the one who does a quick read-through before it publishes. So at any time we have like a number of things that are either in brainstorm mode or interview mode or writing mode or editing mode or publishing mode. So the next thing our coach said to us, good job, you need to hire a full-time videographer. And we said, forever? Like full-time?
Really?
What?
Forever?
What's going on? We have 2 people in our marketing department, so now we have 4. So it's been quite a thing. Drew, this was a search that took 4 months. It took so much longer to find this individual for a number of reasons. We had no problem finding people who had the technical skills, but finding someone who had the really the empathy to put someone behind a camera and make them feel comfortable. It's so different from so much more of a vulnerable place. Anyway, Drew's a great fit, and the lesson there would be to persevere until you're sure you have the right person.
And if you happen to be in this room last session, Chad spoke a lot about invest in your marketing, invest in other things, right? And we, as Denise mentioned, we doubled it in a year, our marketing efforts and our staff.
So the process of producing the content for video is very similar. In fact, it's dovetailed, so our content calendar is now merged with the written content and video content. And our videographer and our writer work very closely together, constantly kind of riffing off of each other for content ideas. And the goal with video is to produce 2 videos per week. That may be like a series of bio videos, you know what I mean, biographies. It may be things about process or whatever. And we do produce the content, again, video addresses the buyer at any stage in their buying process. And we do a series of really highly produced videos, which our videographer is in charge of, as well as low quality video, which we're going to get into here in a second. Here's a couple of GIFs that show content that we've done that's highly produced, that are responding actually directly to content that's already written on our website. These were decided to be elevated because they were worthy of video content. And then we do a lot of these desk-to-desk or one-to-one videos to assignment sell the content that we have on our site. So this is what we kind of talked about early on in terms of how can we more surgically and more precisely, rather than blasting and pushing this information out more broadly, how can we do it in a more precise way to answer the questions that we know specific people are answering. So Sally's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we've created all this content. We have all this written content. We're still working on our video content, but that's coming as well. So now what do we do with it? How do we use it, as Denise alluded to? So it's all out on our website, as we mentioned as well, and that can be discovered organically, right? We're all used to that. It's kind of pulling and attracting people to us, hopefully like a magnet. But we can also be very strategic about it. We can push it out in a much more precise way. We want to push it out to a much more intentional audience, and we do this through assignment selling. So this is a definition of assignment selling. It's really the act of integrating content, whether that be written or video, in the sales process to shorten the sales cycle and increase our closing rates. So we can use assignment selling really at any point in the client's journey with us, whether that's even before they become our client or even during the journey. But we use the content to intentionally educate them. And the idea is to proactively answer all their burning questions. You know, we want to reduce their anxieties and get really to decisions faster, would be the idea. So we're creating that informed and educated buyer, one that's empowered to make the right decisions, hopefully for themselves. We want to establish expectations, create that alignment, and before they even become our client. But also on the flip side of that, it's okay to quickly identify any misalignments. We want to use the content to do that too. That's almost just as important because we don't want to waste any of their time. We don't want to waste any of our time. You know, it just might not be the right fit, and that's okay. Let's just move on to the next place as soon as we can. And we also want to make things a lot easier for our seller doers because I don't know about you, but sales is not always a natural fit for all of us, especially us architects. Oops, sorry. So it does bring on a lot of anxiety, but with assignment selling, you know, our primary goal here is really to educate the client. We're not trying to sell to them, we're just educating them so that they can be informed and make decisions, right? And so there's a lot more comfort and it feels a lot more natural when I feel like I'm educating someone more than I'm trying to sell someone.
And when you know that that goal is to get alignment, the goal is alignment. So there's not the pressure to make the sale. The pressure is to find the right fit. And if it's not the right fit, then that's obviously best for all.
Yep. So in the end, we really want to be proactive. We want to set conditions for every engagement that we're having with our clients and with our buyers. And it's all really about, again, genuinely educating them so that everyone involved is getting to where they want to go sooner. Okay, so a few examples. This is an example of an assignment selling email to a potential buyer. I actually sent this out last week. So to give you a little bit of context, this buyer has never worked with an architecture firm before, really has no idea what to expect, and it was actually quite anxious about getting engaged. So she reached out to us because she really had a strong interest in sustainable design, and that's how she kind of discovered upon us. And so the email, and there's a one-to-one video within the email that I sent her that really helped to set the conditions for an interaction that we were going to have with her in an upcoming meeting. So as soon as it loads here, hopefully, we'll play this video. It was about 2.5 minutes long that I sent to her. We've clipped it down a little bit just to help condense some time. So hopefully this will work.
Hi, Michael. We're very much looking forward to meeting with you tomorrow. Now, the goal of that meeting is going to be to determine the type of workshop that you would benefit from the most. But this outline really should give you a good idea of the type of engagement we could plan for and in a workshop and how we can engage all of your stakeholders. I've included 3 links to articles that you might be interested in. So the first one is a much more broad overview of the green building rating system. And the next 2, which is one of them here that you see on the screen, is really more of a little deeper dive into the specifics about the living building challenge in particular. So each one of these is about a 3 to 5 minute read, and they might have some good information in here and lead to some other questions that we can help respond to as well. So I hope you find it helpful. If you have any other information to share with us regarding any visioning or strategic planning that you've already completed with your stakeholders, we would love for you to send that our way, and we would start taking a look at that before we meet with you tomorrow as well. So otherwise, we're looking forward to a productive call and learning more from you tomorrow. We'll see you then. Take care.
All right, so that's an example of an assignment selling email. And with a one-to-one low production video that I can just make right there from my desk and quickly get that out and hopefully immerse them a little bit more and give them more of that personal attention that they might be looking for. And I can take a little bit deeper dive with that video than I could in probably typing out and explaining all of that in an email. So, and before the meeting, she actually even did exactly what we asked her to do. You know, we haven't actually done a whole lot of this yet, but we've found, so far I've found that they're actually watching them and reacting to them and doing exactly what I asked to be prepared for that meeting, that upcoming engagement, so that we can have a much more productive meeting when we get there. She read the articles that we sent. She also sent me that information that I was asking for about, hey, if you've been doing some visioning already, I'd love to see it because we'd like to prepare a little bit more. So that was fantastic. So we thought it helped us all get to alignment a lot faster and figure out what she would benefit from the most during that meeting. Yes?
Are you using the one-to-one video mostly for needs that you already have, or are you trying to use it for any kind of cold calling, outreach? Or is it just people coming to you so far?
Well, we've been using it in a lot of different ways. I don't know if we've used it for a lot of cold calling quite yet.
Maybe for like a tepid call, or, I mean, it's definitely someone that we have at least met.
Yeah.
Either on the phone or, yes, not a total cold call.
And we'll get to another example here in a second, but we've been using it a lot internally too for messaging, not just externally. Yes?
Are you guys using Zoom or some other technology to help drive the video conference?
To produce it.
Yeah, so she's clearly at her desk.
Yeah.
In some form of technology to
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
we
called
use Vidyard.
Vidyard, yeah, Vidyard, right? I spell that right? Yeah. So that's the software that we've been using right now. Good question. Okay, so we want to get to the point where we're also assignment selling with our high production videos. And I don't have necessarily a great example of using it in an assignment selling approach quite yet. But really the point is for every single piece of content that we're writing about, ideally it's going to be paired with something that's highly produced in a video as well, so that we have both those things to be used. So we're just getting started on it, but we want to share one of the first pieces that we've produced on high production video, and it pairs with this article that's circled on the screen, learning how visioning workshops can foster empathy and help your team build consensus. So we just edited it down to do a short clip on this.
And by being able to talk with their peers that they work with every day, I think you really saw them open up. And they really started to express everything because they were all talking a common language about what they really knew and understand and came to do to work every single day. It was their passion.
So we interviewed several firms, and what we were really looking for is a firm that, one, when they came in, they were a team of equals as far as sharing and telling about their company story, but two, even more than that, they were interested in us. They were interested in hearing about our story and hearing about what is working for us and hearing about what's not before they started offering solutions.
Okay, so again, that was a short clip, but that's something that we produced in-house now because we now have this videographer and he's fantastic. So,
And the way that worked, just technically behind the scenes, is Dave, the architect, was like, hey, you know, we're going out to do this workshop with a client. We don't have any video on that. We should take Drew along with us to, you know, so it just kind of snap, went together. And while we were there, Drew was like, I'm just going to see if I can ask the client a few questions. And so now we've got this content that we can use in that video, but we can also pull segments of that out to be used in, you know, testimonials that are apart from this video, et cetera.
Yeah, so now we not only have a written piece about how our visioning workshops work, but we have a video piece that the client can watch and hopefully actually immerse themselves into, like, see themselves within that process, right? And really evoke more of that emotion and feeling of what it might be like to work with us. So we do have one more example, and this is that example about using assignment selling with our own team. So this is going back to those one-to-one videos. And we've used this actually quite a bit in many different ways, even to document our own processes about different things and workflows. But I pulled this example because it relates directly to what we're talking about today. And this is Tyler. So remember, he's our content journalist. And every week, he sends us, the whole team, an email with a video embedded, just like this. And he's letting us know which articles he published that week and what each one is about. So again, we reduced this one in length from about 3.5 minutes, but I left it a little longer at 2 minutes because I thought it was relevant.
Hello everyone, happy Friday / Earth Day / Code Top 10 announcement day, and happy birthday to Aliana. Let's get started with this weekly wrap-up call. So we've had a couple different pieces of content added to the website. We've had 3 different pieces of content added to the website this week. The first one is, can an architect help with site selection? And the answer is yes, an architect can. So really good stuff for assignment selling. It is useful for anyone who is, looking for a site, going through the site selection process, a client who hasn't done this before, maybe someone who's, also doing a feasibility study. It could be paired with another article that we published a few weeks ago about feasibility studies, which is right here, the beautiful picture of the Munster Public Library. The second piece of content that's been posted this week is 5 factors to consider when hiring a contractor. So we've kind of done things like this for hiring an architect before, like factors to consider when hiring an architect, questions to ask when hiring an architect. But obviously clients also need to hire contractors if they are doing a negotiated contract. So this is a really good assignment selling piece for someone who does have a negotiated contract and actually needs to hire a contractor. And last article is our Code Top 10 award announcement. So this is really an announcement, but it's also a case study. So it dives deep into a lot of stuff that was featured on the application for all this stuff. This really isn't like a traditional assignment selling piece, but I think that this could be something that could easily be sent to a potential client to discuss our process and discuss the results of investing in sustainable design. But yeah, that is all I have for this week. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and of course, reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.
But yeah, that's what he's putting together for us every single week so that we can stay educated as to what is out there. He does a great job summarizing each one of them. What's within here? Why did we write this? Who might it benefit the most? And even starts connecting kind of the web of all of our content. Did you notice in one of them, he was like, this article might get paired really well with this article that we also wrote about. So if they find interest in here, then they'll probably over here as well. And that's fantastic to kind of keep that communication loop going and keeping everyone informed as to the information that we have at our disposal, at our fingertips, really. And I'll also point out, just because the question came up, is earlier where I had made my video sitting at my desk, right? And so Tyler is actually in a room, and so I'll just point out that we've actually now added a whole video room into our office. So we now have a room that everybody can go into and stand there or sit there and create videos like this and send them out at any point in time, and that's what it's dedicated for. So overall, in conclusion here, at least as far as assignment selling goes, is obviously it's impossible to do it unless you have the content. The content has to exist, right? You need to create the right content. It needs to be the content that your buyers are asking about, and then you need to use it, right? And we need to use it to educate our buyer at every single point of their journey.
And one thing I neglected to say is that's why this relationship, that's why I'm here, that's why Sally's here, because there's a constant conversation that's happening between, here's the content that we have, how is it working for you? Does it need to be changed? What do you need that's not out there that you could use this week? And then that gets upvoted and elevated and created.
Yep. Because Denise and her team are responsible for helping us create all the messaging, and then we're responsible for pushing that experience out there to the clients. Okay, and real quick, a little bit about our website. This is a quick glimpse of our website. This is the homepage. So all of our content is published under it. So back to that question, it's underneath the page called blog, listed at the top there. And buyers can certainly find all of this content organically, and it'll direct them to our website, and we can also push them to our website using the assignment selling. I would say our website is not very user-friendly.
We call it our crappy website.
We call it our crappy website. Yeah. We think of it as more of this highly curated magazine with tiny little pictures and tiny little text, right? Not a great experience for those users, not very searchable as well quite yet, but so coming soon though, we're getting a new one. So we're in the works of redesigning that right now. It's going to be finished later this summer, and all our content will be published under what we're calling a Learning Center page now at the top. And it'll be much more user-friendly as far as how searchable it'll be, and searchable by different categories so that they can find all of this information. And I also wanted to point out that guess what else we're putting kind of front and center up in our pages? I don't know, it's probably too small for you guys to see it up there on the screen. Pricing, yes. We're calling it right out. They want to know about it, right? We were talking about all these things that we could talk about with pricing and costs and what it is. We're putting it right up there so they can find it that much quicker, that much easier. We're going to be vulnerable about it. Did you have something else about that?
Nope. It was designed, per story brand. So we've got calls to action, multiple calls to action. Our brand stories is developed and on here. The reason we include it in this context is because it's, we're going to talk about results here next, and these are the results that we're getting from our crappy website. So all the more when we have a website that's hosted by HubSpot and, integrated with our CRM, and, that's nerdy, exciting stuff. So our process is not complete until we have measured. So to get to these questions about measuring, until we've measured and possibly pivoted the content to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. So real quick, here is the past 24 months. The latest 12 months are in the dark blue line. You can see our performance, and down below in the dotted lighter blue lines is the 12 months prior to that. So we are seeing upticks in not only the visits we're getting, but also the time that people are spending on the site. There's a couple of examples here I wanted to share. This is a piece that we created. It was not in our kind of hopper of content to create, but a assignment seller came and said, hey, I need this, we created it. We're like, okay, this is not sexy, but somebody needs it. This thing is exploding. We're not trying to go viral. Not everybody's going to hire an architect, right? But for us, this piece is performing 5 times more than any other piece of content on our website. And people are sticking around and reading it for 6 minutes. I mean, that's unheard of. So we call that the happy surprise. Similarly, this was a piece that we were really excited about, lifecycle costing, because we know that is important for clients to be considering that very thing. It did not perform as well, but what we decided after sort of analyzing it is that this is not someone who's in the beginning of their buyer's journey or before they are signed up with us and working with us. This isn't really on their radar. So this is a good piece for assignment selling when we are working with them to kind of help explain why this is important. And then real quick, just on social media upticks, we have seen on both our 2 major platforms where we share educational material. And then we get feedback in different ways. This was a comment that was just left on our LinkedIn page. So all of this is affirming. Like we started out saying, we're kind of babies in this, right? We're just a year in, so we're not experts by any means, but we started on this journey wanting to achieve these very things, and it's happening. There was one organic search that came into our website who made this comment to us and ended up becoming a converted sale. And a little story about that is it's a residential project. We are very, very selective about the residential projects that we take on. There's very few where we have alignment, yet we get calls on a weekly basis from people who have needs. They need an architect, but it's just not good alignment with us, right? So the first piece of content we wrote was this one, which is titled, Is Neumann Monson the Right Architect for Your Residential Project? What it does is save us a lot of time, right? So we trained our admin person who fields these calls on how to assignment sell this piece, and it's been great. In this particular case, this client who said, if everything on your website is true, we tried to deter that client on several different layers. So we assignment sold this piece. We have another piece which is best residential architects in Iowa. We're not on that list because we're not actively marketing that kind of work. He didn't want to have anything to do with them. He wanted to work with us. Tim told him, we're really busy. You're going to have to wait a while. I can wait. We said it's going to be expensive. It's going to be more expensive than, I don't care. I want to do it. So
I
anyway.
want to work with you.
We're like, okay.
We said, okay, maybe we are aligned.
So we are working with them. And so that's just we keep talking about alignment. And, it's easy for us, I think, particularly in residential projects where people are so passionate about this personal item for them, right, that they maybe don't hear as well. So it takes sometimes a little extra assignment selling for that category. So we started with, we'll wrap up here. We started with why. Why are we doing this? We wanted to become the most trusted voice in our industry, and we're doing that by sharing openly, educating, building trust through that. And so far, it seems to be working.
Yeah. So that's really what we have here today, and we'd love to use the last amount of time that we might have and see who has the first question, in addition to all of them that we've already had. Yeah.
So have you, after all the written content and the video content, I completely unified when it comes to what it takes to put all that together, but is there a certain word length, time length that you found is optimal in terms of absorption of that content?
So the general rule of thumb is to take whatever you need to explain it thoroughly, right? But the guideline is between like 700 and 1,500 words. So if we find ourselves with a piece that's like a little anemic, it's like, okay, maybe that's not the right, maybe there's more to that question that we need to be responding to. And likewise, if our piece is becoming really verbose, and we do see this a lot where we will go into an interview with one of our SMEs on a topic, and we come out of it saying, you know what, that's 3 articles. That's going to be like a series of 3. So, but yes, so between 700 and 1,500.
Or you might write one that kind of sets up, a whole bunch of them, and then there's going to be maybe a series of 4 or 5 of them that go into detail about whatever that initial one kind of set up, right? But try to keep them compressed down a little bit.
And what does that translate to a video?
We've had our videographer for 1 month. In fact, we signed up for this to do this, and we're like, we better get a videographer, so we can tell the story.
Do you gate any of your content?
I don't know what that means.
Put up a form in which a user has to input their information.
In order to download it?
Yeah, premium content. We don't currently on our crappy website, but we will be. So we'll have those capabilities on our new website this summer.
Yep, good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's huge. So, you want to give your buyer options. So if they're ready to sign up and use this, we'll give them that option on our website, and they can do that immediately. But if they're not, which most people aren't, we have to make the way to build their trust in different ways. And so sometimes supplying premium content. So like a premium, we may have a blog piece that's about how our workshop process works, right? So it fits within that 1,700 word count. We may do something that's much more lengthy and have that as a downloadable PDF upon them, providing contact information.
I think there was some over.
I'm curious, since you started this journey of kind of really developing this content for your internal use, have you been able to track kind of a spike in thought leadership opportunities externally as well, like speaking at conferences or other places to position your people as experts?
We're not tracking that. We're still actually in a place where we're trying to do that, get out of our industry more. So there's nothing that's trackable enough yet. But that's on our radar. That's what we want to be doing. We don't want to be speaking at architect conventions. We want to be speaking at, municipal or whatever. Yes?
I'm curious what the timeline looked like from that workload through to the present, and what that kind of early investment period looked like.
Well, thank you. We put a nerdy slide together, and then we took it out. But Sally's finding it right now. So up here, the first line, you can see internal alignment. So that's when we discovered the book, we started reading it, we got everybody on board. About the same time, actually, we started brainstorming some of that content even before we had everybody on board. We hired a content journalist here somewhere in the middle. We were actually starting to create content before we hired the journalist. And, you know, this is the reason we got rid of this slide, because it's not this beautiful linear process. You know, it's a little bit stop and go. Even with our HubSpot training, so we acquired HubSpot and started training on that for our CRM. But then we realized, you know, none of this, our website can't support that. So what we really need to do is like move the generation of the new website forward, and then we'll pick up on the HubSpot to optimize that once our website is in better position.
Is that why you have the dotted line?
That's the dotted line, yes.
Little pause in there.
So down here, you know, is where we're anticipating our website will go live.
You put that one back in the deck. That's really helpful.
Oh, okay, good. So then you see it
Good
took,
to hear.
ideally our content journalist and our videographer would have been a little closer together. It is intentional to get a head start on the written content, because you've automatically got some things that your videographer can kind of pluck from to create video content. However, the intention was not to have that big of a gap.
Yes?
Hi, so I come from the legal world, which is a little bit different than many people in this room, but I feel like sometimes I have the opposite problem. I mean, we have 1,000 lawyers, so it's a little bit of a different scale, but we have attorneys creating a lot of content that people don't care about, I think. Sometimes they just write too much stuff. And so this has been really interesting to hear kind of how you've approached it from the bottom up. And, you know, I'm just going to go back and try to think about how this might apply to our program. And we don't do a ton of metrics analysis or anything like that, but if you have any other thoughts on how we might get people to just be more focused. I mean, I really appreciate your thoughts about asking clients what they want to hear about. I mean, a lot of times we're writing about new laws or regulations or things, and of course they want to learn about that, but you know, sometimes it's just too much content. We have like 30 blogs, so it's just too much. I think, and it can be overwhelming.
That's a lot.
So
Yeah.
it's just giving me a lot to think about.
Well, maybe think about, yeah, like what are those clients most anxious about, right? And how could that kind of help focus in on some of the content that you might write about? Where are their highest anxieties? And then you can get to the point of educating maybe on a deeper dive about things once you've kind of addressed those and where their pain points are.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be, you know, you sitting down at a table with clients and asking them, because we are already asked these questions. You know, in fact, one of the points that the person in the book makes is like, you know those nagging questions that you get over and over again, and you're just like, why do I have to keep explaining this? Well, guess what? You don't have to. So those should be the first pieces of content that you're creating. So those might be a couple of angles that you take. It sounds like, I mean, we were in the same headspace where we were creating this stuff that we thought was important, and it wasn't, because it wasn't through that.
I thought we had to be super profound and like solve some big problem,
Yes,
or
we're
have a big
architects
white
after all.
paper and, you know, and be able to present on it. And it's like, no, that's not really what they're asking us. You know, if you're focusing on the client, you know, they just want you to reduce their anxieties about something.
And I suspect some of the barriers that we have in terms of people approaching our profession might be the same. So how do we, as Sally said, relieve those pain points and make it more accessible?
And maybe for you too, if you have, if you're able to find someone that can kind of put one lens through it all, that maybe doesn't quite take as deep of that technical dive into something, so that your potential clients aren't getting too lost into the weeds, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective as well. That you guys brought on somebody who just,
Knows nothing.
too much jargon in our communication also.
Because then the way he asks questions is it forces us to be like, okay, I got to step back a little bit. I'm not just talking to my colleague here, so to speak, that I work with every day on solving these problems. I got to step back and be like, okay, how can I explain this a little bit, more holistically and at a little bit higher level?
We've also started asking this question internally: why would they care? Why would they care? So that's kind of our litmus test. Like, why would they care? Do they care? Oh, okay, no, you're right.
Maybe they don't care.
So you guys are welcome to come up here and
Yeah.
snaps and pics of this stuff?
We're over our time a little bit, but we're happy to still stick around or feel free to ask some more questions.